right, let's go, because you know what I came in to do.
I don't get paid for overtime. I'm here to fight.
Yeah, look, Sam, I think it is a little bit of that. If I'm totally honest, look, that is a great trade fight. Everybody knows that. Joshua BUATSI is the WBA #1. Dan AZEEZ was WBA #2. Tickets were selling well. I believe that they were over 10,000 tickets sold. So
you heard it from Spencer. He said 10,000 tickets. That's what he said. He works for Sky Sports. Frank Smith said they sold 1,500 tickets. Trolling. Blatant trolling. He knew they sold more than that. But what's the real number? Because Johnny Nelson also works for Sky.
With you saying that as well, Frank Smith obviously came out and said that Boxer have sold 1,500 tickets and they pulled it. And 7,500 tickets. Yeah, so I was saying that. So then Boxer came out and said, said the figure 10,000 was another figure that was mentioned.
7,500 tickets. It took 7,500 tickets were sold.
Right, Johnny's mic wasn't that high. I know I heard 7,500, but I know a lot of people are going to say, no, you can hear he said 10,000. So I put the subtitles up. He clearly says 7,500 tickets were sold, which contradicts Spencer's number of 10,000. And they both work for Sky. How have they both come up with different numbers? Now, personally, I believe they got caught out a little there. But I'm not going to make a big deal. Maybe Spencer's right and Johnny's wrong. Johnny said it took 11,000. What he meant by that is they reduced the capacity of the arena, the 20,000 arena, to half. But he's saying 11. He's saying they reduced it to 11,000, 7,500 tickets were sold. That means potentially you're putting a fight that's barely doing copper box numbers in the O2. That's 3,500 seats unaccounted for out of the allocated 11. I'm thinking maybe Johnny isn't even telling the truth. Maybe that's the number they were told to go public with. Yeah, 7.5. Spencer went 10. Your fight card is cancelled 4 to 5 days before the event. Usually, for these cards here, you book the arena at least a month in advance. At the least. I'd say 2, but at least a month. Take the York Hall for instance. Steve Goodwin would have blocked bookings because he has a schedule of shows that he does on the York Hall yearly. Sky don't have that arrangement. They will book months in advance. And you could get lucky in the exact date that you want. The 21st is just available. But it is pretty lucky. It is pretty lucky. Could happen though. So that means they gave 8,800 refunds back. Now, maybe out of them 8,800 refunds, maybe they didn't all want refunds, but they just couldn't get an arena that could bridge the gap. Like O2 too big, York Hall too small, Copper Box probably not available. But come on, man, you don't believe they sold the tickets more than I do. They tried as hard as they can, and 4 days out, they have to give up the ghost. They couldn't sell no more tickets. If they're going to reschedule it, they might as well reschedule it for the Copper Box or the York Hall. We know it's not an O2 arena fight. We've at least established that. There's no shame in it. British boxing is going through a little bit of a crash period. Ben Shalom is so inexperienced and way out of his depth at the moment. And that's the truth. GIOVANNI SANTILLAN, the quintessential television fighter. Southpaw slugger. Doesn't care if he gets hit. From the first round, he was trying to loop that left hook around Rocha's guard. Battle of the Southpaws. I think Rocha was caught off guard by Santillan's aggression. I've never seen Santillan fight, but I'm assuming Rocha's trainers and he himself done a scouting report and knew what they was up against. Maybe they did, but they were still not quite ready for the ferocity of Santillan's two-handed attack. Rocha started well, but Santillan proved to be too much of a handful with his two-handed attack and his aggression. Alexis Rocha, in all truth, hasn't really looked like that guy since he stopped Blair Cobbs. He has been an active fighter though, Alexis, but he's going to need a long rest after this. 5 right hooks on the bounce. Not exactly textbook. Roy Jones used to do that type of thing. This guy threw 5 right hooks on the bounce. Great television. Put Rocha on the canvas. That was in the 5th and finished him off in the 6th. Rocha's face was a bloody mess. Top rank, they gambled, sending Santillan over to Golden Boy, and it paid off. Paid off beautifully. Personally, I would like to see Santillan versus Conor BENN. That fight is like a volcano. That's what you call a hot fight. 2 aggressive power punchers Well, he was trying to walk Linares onto that backhand, that left hand. Jack has a good jab. He needs to step in with it more. I actually expected Linares to do better at getting around that pouring thing that Jack does with the right hand rather than really throwing a jab hard. But Linares boxed well for the first 4. And in the 5th round, exactly what I foresaw when I broke the fight down happened. Jack tagged Linares with a hard left. Linares, going backwards, is unlikely to generate any power. But Jack didn't spot how hurt Linares was until he was fully backed into the ropes. And, you know, the precious seconds gave Linares time to recover. And this is what I'm saying about the inactivity. It takes the killer instinct away. Linares put up a decent battle, but he did enough not to get knocked out. The 7th was a really good round for Catterall. And I'm not going to focus on the negatives. Catterall is a good boxer who's going to be very difficult to beat unless you knock him out, because he's very aware that he doesn't want to be off balance when he punches, which makes him very hard to counter. He doesn't throw enough to the body. No, he doesn't. He throws that long left to the body. Ultimately, these things could cost him at the highest echelon. At 140, they could. The winner out of Haney and Prograis is interesting. I also think he could take on Richardson Hitchens. But I can't take Josh Taylor seriously. I mean, he swerved Jack Catterall to fight Teofimo Lopez, lost that, and now he's still talking crap. To be honest, I don't even care about that rematch. It wasn't a robbery like everyone was saying. It was actually a close fight, but if Josh Taylor wants to duck, go duck. Go duck. I don't know if there's a world title fight out there next fight for Jack Catterall. He should just keep active right now. Big card in Mexico. I know everybody's going to be talking about the other card in Saudi Arabia, but Shaquille Foster versus Eduardo Hernandez for that WBC World Super Featherweight title that Shaqi has. The other fight I'm looking forward to is Justice Hooney, 7-0 versus Andrew Tabiti at heavy. That's on the undercard. Let's not underestimate Andrew Tabiti. He's had 3 wins since the Dorticus disaster. Hasn't been very active, 1 fight a year. But this guy was in the Mayweather gym. He's fairly slick. Hooney has been fighting people like Paul Gallen, Kiko Tua Latule, who took him the distance last time out. And this is a good fight. This is a good fight. I haven't got a solid pick on this, so I'm not going to pretend that I have a solid pick. I expect Hooney to win a points decision, but I don't even know if Tabiti beating him would be an upset. I could see Tabiti winning it. I really don't know. And you know how I do. I don't just make a prediction because I have to make a prediction. If I'm not sure who's going to win, it is what it is. I don't know who wins this one. It's a very good matchup. Is it too early for Hooney? Champion Shaquille Foster. He's a couple of inches taller than Hernandez. He's not an out-and-out boxer. He's a boxer, a very aggressive boxer-puncher. That's what he looks like. And I see him doing pull counters and 50 shell. But Hernandez hits awfully hard, man. Springing from a crouch to throw big left hooks and power shots. This is a really good fight. And MATCHROOM are having to pay out well to get Shaqi to go over Mexico to defend that title. WBC World Super Featherweight title. Now, you know what they're planning. They're planning for Hernandez to win that. And then it's going to be him against Joe Cordina. Like, whew, huge. But Shaquille Foster can't be written off. 28-2 with 11 inside the distance. Hernandez is 34-1 with 31 inside the distance. Well, I know it's a very good fight, and that's a good card. You know what I mean? Looking forward to that. Hernandez got pieced up, 1-round knockout defeat by Roger Gutierrez. I do remember that. I actually do remember it. And it was a big upset at the time. Is his chin the real deal? He's had 7 wins since then, all inside the distance. More than likely this fight doesn't go the distance. More than likely. Oh, Shaqi might be a little too versatile for him. Might be, but we'll see. We'll see. Tyson Fury versus Ngannou is not on BOXREC, which I'm surprised because the British Boxing Board of Control are actually sanctioning the fight now. So I thought BOXREC recognised everything that the board sanctioned. but there's no mention of the fight on BOXREC. What does it really mean that the board are sanctioning the fight or giving it its blessing? It makes it more authentic in some people's eyes. It's a fight. They said it's not an exhibition, and if it's not an exhibition, it's not an exhibition. Now, back in the year 1957, Floyd Patterson defended his world heavyweight title against P. Radmacher, his fellow American, who was Olympic champion, and this was Pete Radmacher's debut. The difference is Pete had amateur background in boxing. Francis doesn't have that. So Eddie Hearn, he's riffing a little that the British Boxing Board of Control are changing the rules. What were the rules, though? To allow someone who's never laced up a pair of gloves, his experience as a combat fighter is in MMA. They're allowing someone who's never laced up boxing gloves to take on the current WBC heavyweight champion, even though that belt will not be on the line. Eddie's real gripe is that Conor BENN was cleared by the National Anti-Doping Panel, who lifted the UKAD suspension. He was cleared to fight, and now he can't get to stage EUBANK versus BENN in London, and he's pissed about that. Them sanctioning Francis Ngannou, no boxing experience, no amateur or pro experience, to take on Tyson Fury. He's looking at a contradiction perhaps in morals from the board. Now, before anyone starts, I do not necessarily agree with Eddie Hearn that the board shouldn't sanction the fight. And Eddie's not the only one saying it. There's many people saying the board shouldn't do this, they shouldn't do that. What are the arguments for them not doing it, and what are the arguments against them doing it? Put the arguments up. Don't just tell me people shouldn't do this and shouldn't do that. Put up the arguments. And don't make it no lame argument that doesn't stand up, at least in my opinion. I ain't trying to hear that. I do think they should sanction BENN versus EUBANK. I don't think they should be pursuing an appeal. They didn't pursue an appeal when the same body, the National Anti-Doping Panel, reversed the suspension they had on Tyson Fury in 2016. They didn't appeal that. Why are they appealing Conor's suspension getting lifted? Is there an agenda? There's no difference. UKAD suspended Tyson Fury and Hughie Fury, and the National Anti-Doping Panel lifted the suspension. UKAD or the board didn't appeal the National Anti-Doping Panel's decision to lift the suspension. So we look at the undercard. BOXREC do not recognise Fury versus Ngannou. They're not recognising that. At least at the moment. That might be subject to change now the board are sanctioning it. I don't know. But they don't have David ADELEYE versus Fabio Wardley on BOXREC. Joseph Parker. Makhmudov, who takes on Junior Anthony Wright. You've got Moses Atoma versus Bernaf. Martin Bakole versus Carlos Takam. And Jack McGann versus Alcibiade Duran Galvan. Now, I am looking forward to Martin Bakole versus Carlos Takam. Definitely looking forward to ADELEYE versus Wardley. Show starts around 6 o'clock. Main event will be around 10:40. So if you're from a similar time zone to the United Kingdom, it's just business as usual. Bakole versus Takam is very interesting. Good matchmaking. And Wardley versus ADELEYE, that's very interesting as well. I do like the undercard. According to Shane Fury, Talksport and Simon Jordan are banned from the event. In fact, Talksport and Simon Jordan are banned from all Tyson Fury events from here on. Sounds like smoke though, you know what I mean? Like, Gareth Davis is there, isn't he? He's covering the event. And he's always talking about the event on Talksport, so it's not like Talksport are disconnected from the event. Old Gaz was telling Anthony Joshua he needs to question the Saudi Arabia government before he fights over there and their human rights record. But now he's well in there, isn't he? Comfortable, taking all the hospitality that's been thrown at him over there. Can't stand the geezer. Can't really stand the people at Talksport, to be honest. Really can't. So from what I gather, Fury's beef is with Adam Catterall and Simon Jordan. They've been critiquing the event and questioning why he's not fighting Usyk. But he's supposed to be fighting Usyk in December. Anthony Joshua, a lot of people are saying that he's left Derek James. Where are they getting this information? Anthony Joshua is now in Texas. He was at the Formula One event over there. He hasn't left Derek James. And he was also saying that he's up for being on the undercard of Fury versus Usyk in Saudi Arabia and taking on Deontay Wilder. So I don't know what he knows and what they've got scheduled for that event.
All right, so tell us about you. Is it Deontay Wilder you got in April? Is that coming up?
In April, thinking far ahead. Yeah, so if they get this undisputed fight on, which has been looming for a while, word on the streets is it's supposed to be the undisputed fighters, and then the undercard is supposed to be a big, lively one with me and Wilder. But in the meantime, we're going to be active this year. I've set my goals 3 times this year. We've still got about 2 months of the year left now, and I'm going to still potentially get a fight in and end this year on a high, God willing, and then move on to the next year and go out there and kick some more behind.
I've never got that vibe that AJ was scared to fight anybody in his weight class, from he's been an amateur till now. Maybe it's something you want to be self-fulfilling prophecy, but it's not a reality. So Harlem EUBANK has announced that Chris EUBANK Sr. is to join his management team. Delighted to have him support the next chapter of Harlem's career. Okay, interesting. You know, obviously it's talking about a fighting family here. Harlem EUBANK is the son of Peter EUBANK, who has a twin brother, Simon. The elder brothers of Chris, they all used to throw hands in the ring. It's pros as well. Simon EUBANK, father of Harlem, he actually passed away September this year. Lee Wood, looks like he's vacated that WBA featherweight title and he's looking to move up to 130. There doesn't seem no other option. Like, even though he pulled out the win against Josh Warrington, he looked to step behind Warrington for most of it. So he's moving up to 130. And there's a lot happening at Matchroom between 126 and 130. So if Lee Wood moves up, he could take on Joe Cordina, who's taking on Edward Vasquez in Monaco next month. We know Shaki Foster headlines on Saturday, covered that already. Eduardo Hernandez. If Hernandez wins it, he could either unify with Cordina. The Lee Wood fight might be there. Ben Davison already recently told Boxer News that they hope to secure a fight against WBO champion Emmanuel Navarrete, so they could just walk straight into a featherweight title shot by crossing the street to Top Rank and hope to pull off an upset. So we'll see how that goes.